Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening.
We have a little complicated schedule tonight. We've got a lot of things going on with the end of the year. So we will start with our regular Winona County Board meeting, and we always start that meeting with an opportunity for members of the public to address the county board about anything, and you have 2 minutes. Then we are going to go through our consent agenda, and our first item in our general business is to conduct a public hearing on the 2019 budget and the 2019 fee schedule. Now that's our general budget. I know some people are here because you got season's greetings from Winona County, your proposed taxes for next year. If you have concerns and valid concerns about valuations or tax increases, we have a small notebook pad there you can put your name and phone number on, and then somebody from Steve Hacken's office, the assessor's office, will contact you to discuss those items. This board has virtually no control over assessments and that part of the taxing system. So if you're questioning your own personal property, please put your name on that small little line notepad, and then Mr. Hacken or his office will contact you. They can pull up your exact information and discuss it privately with you versus trying to discuss it here. I do encourage you to stick around, though, and question us about our budget, because our budget, your taxes are reflected in our budget, how much we collect, how much we spend for the services that we provide. So that will be into our general business. But right now, so hopefully that's perfectly clear. If not, don't hesitate to ask. But we will start as normal public comment. You have 2 minutes. Anybody can come to the podium. We ask you to state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes to address the whole county board about any issue. So we will start with public comment. Please approach the podium, name and address.
Good evening. Shelley DePastel, 18942 County Road 18. I am a partner at Daily Farm of Lewiston, and this comment is made on behalf of us at the farm. Where is one to look for people with an open mind and look at things objectively? There are people on the Planning and Zoning Commission that have already stated publicly that they are against my family's dairy expansion. They have been selected to look at issues with the county that come before them without bias. They are to listen to the citizens and then make an informed decision. Margaret Walsh, Vince Reedy, Kelly Stange have already published public comments against my farm. They currently are appointees of the board and obviously have a conflict of interest. Amy Cordry, Rachel Stoll have published public comments against us and are seeking county appointments. I would hope that the county board will see that this is probably a poor way to do business, is to take people who already have a bias against businesses in Winona County and put them on boards that will then wind up, our future will be in their hands, and they are clearly not necessarily looking out for the best interests of the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board? If not, we'll move on into our agenda. Thank you. Item 3, approval of the county board meeting minutes. We have 3.1 closed session of November 27th and the county board meeting of November 27th.
I'd move to approve those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, meeting minutes approved. Item 4, acknowledge receipt of the approved committee minutes for the Board of Adjustment for October 18th.
Move to acknowledge the approval of those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Pomeroy to acknowledge the receipt of the approved committee meeting minutes from the Board of Adjustment. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing for me.
One item.
Okay. Commissioner Jacob, one item.
Nothing for me.
Okay. I'll reserve the right. Something will pop up during the discussion. I'll reserve the right to make a comment. The other things I have, well, actually, I do. I have an old document that I want to revitalize and take a look at, so it'll be a future business. Okay? So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pomeroy, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Mr. Fritz, if you would read the consent agenda, please.
The consent business department recommendations, 6.1, approve appointing Kenneth Fritz as interim community services director. 6.2, approve memorandum of understanding between Region 10 counties to clarify roles and services. 6.3, approve service agreement for utilization of Olmsted County Tuberculosis Clinic services. 6.4, approve Minnesota Department of Human Services 2019 to 2020 Adult Mental Health Grant Award. 6.5, approve request for $5,000 annual funding for Southeastern Minnesota Emergency Medical Services Joint Powers Board. 6.6, approve resolution and detour agreement number 1031858 with MnDOT. Number 6.7, approve resolution and detour agreement number 1031961, again with MnDOT. 6.8, approve resolution for Minnesota Department of Agriculture 2018 grant reporting extension for Oriental bittersweet eradication. 6.9, approve special benefit tax levy resolution and approve budget for fiscal year 2019. 6.10, confirm payment of disbursements.
I move to approve the consent business as presented.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Pomeroy, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the consent business as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Approved. General business, 7.1. This is now the public hearing concerning the Winona County 2019 budget and the 2019 fee schedule. Is there anyone wishing to address the... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Pomeroy to open the public hearing. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, public hearing is open. I'm not sure if anybody's signed up to speak. Okay, come on up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
I am Tom Scarpenzini. I farm in Wiscoy Township on Brandywine Road. Been farming for 25 years and have never seen the necessity to come here and address this group about taxes. But this bill that I just got for next year, or this proposed bill, is 18% higher than last year. And my question for you is the budget 18% higher? Or, I mean, I haven't looked into the details of line by line why it's gone up so much, but this is absurd. And when you consider the percentage of the population in this county that's involved in agriculture and where the economy is in agriculture right now, to lace a burden like this at a time like this is unfathomable.
I'm thinking you may have an issue with a change in valuation. Taxes didn't go up 18%.
Well, that was my question. Right?
No, not at all.
What percentage did it go?
Well, it would be 5.5 at the maximum, but I'm thinking that if you look at do you have your statement there, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could we take a quick look at it? Or
Look in the upper right-hand corner. I do know your Wiscoy Township.
Yes.
Wiscoy did approve at their annual meeting, I think, to buy their own road grader. So I
Yes,
think,
but that was not,
Oh.
certainly not of that magnitude.
well, actually, your Wiscoy Township doubled. Your township, your Winona County taxes went up by $62, and your Wiscoy Township went up by $800.
yeah.
But we're looking at, in this case,
See,
$3,600 for me.
What about the school?
School levies this year in 861 actually went down slightly until the referendum kicks in.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
861.
But this is my assessment for 2000.
yeah, your county,
He must have multiple.
yeah, your
parcels,
county
yeah.
taxes went up by,
He's got multiple parcels.
Five,
We're
five.
just looking,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. We
Okay.
just looked at the first one.
let's see these last ones.
1836.
Yep, and look at the
It's an
bottom.
increase of $3,700 in 1 year.
And almost all of that, as I'm looking at these, are all your township.
Yeah, if you look at,
I,
this- so it's county, in your case township, and then school district. If you look at this Wiscoit, this is where the biggest, looking at it very briefly, this is your biggest increase.
and it's that way on all of them,
and-
all five.
Another thing that I trigger in personally is your estimated market value. Did that change? Because if that changes, then automatically your tax goes up. But that should be pretty stable.
It didn't change enough to make a difference. In fact, I'd say that 95% of your increase is in the township.
Township. Yeah, yeah. No, that's okay.
With the city, I mean, the county, it's probably less than $150 on all five of them total.
Right. But next year, 861, school district will increase because they approved the $10 million referendum. So that will have some impact on our taxes next year. The school board. School board. Winona, you're in 861
And in
Winona.
some
School
cases
Board.
with your township, some of them doubled.
But I heard that you levied to, double the levy in order to buy a new road grader. I just learned that today from, yeah, and then, yeah, pretty significant. Okay, well, it's no consolation, but it's unfortunate, the facts.
Because they all come together.
Yeah. We've asked the other entities to put that tax statement on their stationery and we'll pay the stamp, but they have neglected to take us up on that offer. Anybody else here wishing to address the Winona County Board about the budget? Step forward, please, Mr. Flynn.
Hi, I'm Mike Flynn, 27249 Rustland Drive. I think the last gentleman pointed out something that we're all aware of is multiple entities, and I don't believe it'll be next year that the referendum will go on our tax statement. I think it'll be April.
Oh,
We won't be waiting a week on it, or a year on it.
oh, okay, well,
But it does show the cost to our residents across the board. Now, let's get back to your levy, the 5.5%. Plus, I understand on top of that, you have about a $400,000 overrun beyond that, right? So really we're tapping out of that. And my concern is this. It seems like we're not even close to the cost of living. And going this year and onward, I don't see much improvement in sight. And that concerns me. I think we need to look deeper. I've had to manage our county more fiscally responsibly, perhaps. When I was driving here, I looked down and I go, wow, my vehicle has 180,000 miles on it, and I plan to keep it for at least another 100,000 miles, and I'm confident it's going to do that. And my point is, when you look at your fleet replacements in the county, I'm just trying to point out a few areas you might look at. The technology of my vehicle, your vehicles, is much better than it was 20 years ago. The thought of getting rid of a vehicle at 80,000 miles to me is like I could still smell the newness. Okay? And as far as the breakdown and the problems, well, my 180,000 miles, the only thing I've ever done is put tires on it and change the oil. I have had no major problems with it at all. And I think this is true, too, when we look even at our highway department. Okay, we got a lot of plows, we got a lot of equipment, and we do need those. I'm not saying that we don't need quality equipment to do the job. But there was a farmer who's just up here, and I know a farmer that's got 10,000 hours on his tractor, and it's his primary tractor, and it's still running pretty well. So when we look at replacing things, well, quite frankly, we have townships waiting in line for you to trade in your snow plows so we can buy them at a reduced price, and we'll double the miles on them. So my point is are we looking at every opportunity to be as fiscally responsible as we can be? Another area is energy's down, isn't it? Gasoline is down. Diesel's still up there pretty good, around $3. But natural gas, LP, whatever your energy is lower this year. Where is the savings? It seems like when we have an opportunity to have a significant savings, I never see it in the paper. I never hear it. Kudos from your department heads for saving something. As a taxpayer, what I hear of is, oh, state mandates and we're short and we're going to need more money. Okay? So when we look at our campus even, you have done a lot of lighting changes, things to conserve electricity, and that should be folding in that mix too. So I don't accept the fact that onward, that we're going to have to be twice of what inflation is, and we just accept it because, you know, that's our destiny. Just too bad, Mike, but that's the way it's going to be. No, I think we can look farther, and I think we can find ways to encourage our taxpayers to want to be here. I'm very concerned that if we don't really control the growth of our county government, actually our township government, our state government, will we be business friendly? Will people come? Because the other part of the equation, this will be my last point, is we need to build our tax base. And we do have a few projects going on in downtown, but we're not going as, I look at my neighbors in Olmsted County and oh my God, they're going gangbusters. So if you build your tax base, you can control your levy. So those are my comments. And I would like to challenge you to see what you can do this year. You've already got things pretty well in line. But in future years, challenge yourself to not accept this is the best it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just point out one thing, Mike? And that is, for the past 10 years, we've been at 0.4% per year, which is about a third of what inflation has been from 2009 until 2019. The total levy has gone up 4% in 10 years. So,
On the average.
on average, yeah.
Remember, I didn't look back. I'm looking forward.
Right, exactly.
If I can hold
Yep.
you that 4%, I won't show up.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you'll be sitting back here with me when we talk about it.
Okay. I
I
hear
think you need a conversation with your brother, though. I think Olmsted County, with the enormous growth in the billing of the tax base, I think they still raised their taxes. Olmsted County.
I don't know. I don't have any problem.
Yeah, I think so. Ask your little. Is it your little brother? Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board about the tax levy? I did receive a note from one of my constituents, and she owns a small business in rural Winona County, and I asked her to send it to me, and I said I would read it in for the record. So it comes to our county commissioner, staff, and employees. I want to thank you for giving of your time and efforts in each of your capacities. Budgeting and good decision-making is vital for our future and our next generations to come. I would ask that you use basic math and common sense above all to finalize our budget. The current situation with courthouse security is a prime example. If we are not fiscally responsible, we are not doing good for our community as a whole or the next generation. Any household or business is not sustainable when they overspend. Government is not an exception to this. All expenses need to be justifiable, and those receiving funds need to be accountable. It appears cuts are inevitable and need to be addressed. Please make decisions for the best interest of all of us, not a select few groups. Thank you, Dawn Cronebush. So that'll be added for our public comment record. So is there anyone else so wishing to speak to the Winona County Board? All right. Now this includes the fees, and we have a lengthy list of fees, and that was included in our packet, and it is online, correct? And it's not to say that sometimes if a fee doesn't catch your attention, only when you have to pay it, it catches your attention. So those fees can always be addressed during the year too. We set them, but they are, they can be subject to change if we find that there's a problem with any one of our fees that's not in line.
You don't ask them for public comment?
If anybody has any comment on the fees, it's a long, lengthy list, but it is online. Where would they, what's the department, is that on the website, how would they access the fees? Is that through the,
Well, there's a couple ways. I mean, well, Pat, just jump in.
yeah,
There's a couple ways. You can actually go under administration, and then right now you can kind of look at the board packet that's actually in today that actually has the fee schedule. But then you can also go under the county website, go under finance, go under financial information, and then under financial information to share the fee schedules. And there's fee schedules there that go back probably 10 years.
okay, all right, just so if anybody does want to look at those. All right, one last time, any questions, concerns? Mike, please come forward.
Well, again, Mike Flynn from 27249. Briefly, it's hard to go through all those fees and get a perception on it. On an annual basis of collecting fees from that fee list, what percentage you go up? What additional revenue are you expecting to receive from changing the fees?
It's minimal.
Very little increase in the fees, right?
Each department reviews their fees, and it's pretty minimal because we do not make money on our fees. We cover our cost on fees, and that's the.
I thought they looked almost
I didn't.
flat across the board.
Yeah.
In many areas, there's no increases at all.
Right.
And I respect that, but in fairness for us to go online and figure that all out,
Yep.
that's like a needle in a haystack to determine what's really happening
That's right.
until you're down here doing business. And then you go, oh my God.
Yeah, that's why I say we're
Really
always
happening.
willing to look at those fees if some citizen feels that they're totally.
And really, I might remind some people that back in the days when you were 0.4%, you raised the fees substantially. Yeah, I believe you did. Well, you could prove me wrong someday. But,
We depend on staff to.
And the bottom line is not the fees so much. Look at your annual budget, and that's what I want to go off of the growth of that annual budget from year to year. Because again, if you want to go back to the historical area there, we received quite a few grants from the federal government, and they're gone. So that substituted to help with that low fee or low percentage. And that's great. We did capitalize on something. But today I'm here only to talk or to recommend where I am on your annual budget. Thank you.
You know, I think it may be good to make an interesting comment here, and that is that when you look at our budget or any county budget across the state, what you're going to find is that the state has more influence over our local budget than we do. A perfect case in point would be out-of-home placements, which were 8 or 9 years ago like $250,000 a year, and now they've gone over $2 million. And
We get $0 for that. The
Yeah.
state mandates us to do it.
So-
That goes on your property tax.
yeah, and so if we hadn't have to deal with that issue the way we do, we'd be lowering taxes by about $1.4 million, I think.
And where the decreases or the lack of increase for 10 years came from, Mike, was at one point, I think the county had 335 employees, and now we're down to 285 employees. So, we physically cut the size of government, and that's where we came up with efficiencies to not raise taxes. But that was all consumed by the state, and in order to not raise taxes and just pay those additional mandates that the state was requiring us to do, that's where your dollars have gone.
And a perfect example of that would be when we look at the fund balance for our community services department, which is your health and human services type of thing. What we find is that due to lack of reimbursement by the state, see, they mandate it and they say they'll fund it, but then they start pulling back on their funding for what they're requiring you to provide. We had an $8 million surplus in our human services budget about 8 or 9 years ago. and now we're running at a deficit. And what it means is that all of those dollars have gone to pay for state mandates that they aren't reimbursing us on, that they promised to. And that's what happens when we're one of only 10 states, I believe, right now, where we handle social services in that way, where it's administered through the county. And it's great for the state of Minnesota because they require you to provide the service, but then they don't pay you for it. Whereas if it was state administered,
And they can say their budget is balanced.
yes, exactly.
Why they're punting it off on your, they've concocted a way to put their funding shortage onto your property tax. And they're not being transparent, and we try to bring this to every year to our senators, legislators, and representatives. And
That's
you need to bring that to them too.
That's actually part of the budget deficit. They are, have a deficit. They have a surplus because we're paying the local
They
property
put it onto
tax.
the local property tax.
And so,
Millions of dollars in Winona County annually.
yes. So part of my comment at the end, and it seems appropriate now, is you're right. Governor-elect Walz, he made a comment the other day, and I should have written it down, but it was something about the public had an appetite for more government. And I thought, sir, I don't know who you're talking to, but they're boasting that they have a $1.5 billion surplus. No, they don't. Yes, they do. They have collected more than they deserve in different areas, but they have underfunded. We have 87 counties in the great state of Minnesota, and I know the great majority, I don't think everybody did, there might be a few that didn't, but almost every county in the state of Minnesota has had to increase the property taxes to cover, just like this, my colleagues are saying, these underfunded or unfunded mandates that the state of Minnesota hands down. So one of the things that we have to prepare ourselves for and address this new group that's coming into control is to control their spending, to fund what they've already got on the books at an appropriate level before they start this appetite for additional programs and packages and everything else. It's unsustainable. But they feel so great that they got 1.5 billion. And I'm sorry, Mr. Your last name is. Yes, Scarpacini. He's not contributing to that 1.5, and most of my constituents aren't because they didn't make any money. They're paying the fees and paying the sales taxes and things like that, or employment taxes that they're forced to pay, but it's not income tax. So it's just part of what we need to do is get with Governor Walz as counties and say, you need to fund what you're asking us to do so we do not have to put the burden on local property taxes.
So there's two trains of thought, and all I've heard so far is it's underfunded. The other thing would be to talk to your legislators and representatives about not mandating it, either doing it themselves or reduce the mandates. They've figured out a very convenient way to put human services onto property taxes. And
Can I ask Madam Chair one more thing?
Yes.
What's the percentage increase this fund to cover it for the upcoming year? On your budget, how?
we would be lower. We wouldn't be raising our. We'd be like 5.5 negative.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking only about this particular.
If it wasn't for this one program,
And tell me how much you increased that in your budget.
I can't tell you precisely, but what I can tell you is this.
Yeah, we can.
We can end up doing that. But I can tell you this, it adds to the base. But if not for that one program, our taxes would be where they were 10 years ago.
It's
Easily.
about 1 point.
Easily.
Each percent of levy, and we're talking about 5.5%. So a percent of levy raises $184,000. So 5.5% times $184,000.
So if we've gone up 4% total in 10 years, that program has raised the levy by about 8 to 10%.
But what I'm getting at, and you've heard me talk at the podium, and I want to
Sure.
Yeah.
We're going to next year, and what you're telling me is,
Yep.
you got an out-of-control program,
Yes.
and you're suggesting to me, and your verbiage, that next year I'm going to be here, I'm going to hear the same swan song scenario.
Until we
Unless
get the
change.
state of Minnesota to change how they do business with the counties.
And of course, a lot of you know I'm out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm very much aware.
it's just like a simple, Mr. Klinger's here, and we just approved in our consent business, approving spending $5,000 for emergency management services. So our volunteer ambulance, EMTs and everything can get the training and everything they need. Well, the funding formula to do that many years ago was based on the seatbelt fines, which just a few short years ago for an 11-county group, it was like about $300,000. And we could do a lot with that as an 11-county group, did a lot of training, because a volunteer EMT has the same training as a professionally highly paid EMT. That funding, because of the formula, unfortunately, we're using seatbelts. There aren't as many people violating the law. It has dropped to about $180,000 for that same 11 counties. So we can't do the same training and offer the same services for that volunteer group that we had to kick in another $5,000 of local property taxes to help keep that going. So it's some of these formulas and some of these methodologies that the state of Minnesota has used that are either outdated or just haven't kept up with, even steady funding.
And you're saying then the rest of the county programs and departments are as lean and mean as they could possibly be?
No, I'm not.
Well,
I won't say that.
We have gone from 300 and
335 to 280.
285.
Yeah.
290.
We're leaner than we were.
But I want you to look at the fleets and the equipment and the energy saving. I
Yes.
have those things.
Yep.
And I didn't mean it to be all inclusive.
Well, you won't be sitting in this building a year from now. We sold this building.
And that could be a good thing, some savings, right?
Yes. Well, hopefully. So.
Well,
hopefully,
150,000 a year. It's supposed to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
And I assume you're probably having to steal incomes from all the banks around town.
Yeah, I do. I just was at a conference and I pick up all the pens, pencils, and notepads.
The only other thing we can do to try to control costs is we do have some prevention programs, and some of them are community-based in the sense that they're either run by the nonprofits or sometimes they're run by coalitions of volunteers. And that's our next item on the agenda, is one of those groups making a report to us. So there are people involved with little or no county funding that are doing prevention programs to strengthen families and to do whatever we can to keep families together so that these out-of-home placement costs don't go any higher. So we are trying to control the costs in that sense, and that shows up minimally in the budget compared to the deficit that the state doesn't actually fund.
And about 70% of the out-of-home placements are caused by parental drug abuse.
Drug abuse
And
and
so
alcohol.
this is one of the societal scourges that affects everybody. It affects families, it affects us. I mean, we're budgeting for it and stuff too.
Yeah.
And from an out-of-home placement perspective, hugely expensive. And that's what it's from.
Well, from our engagement, I think that we made the night worthwhile.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think so.
Thank you for adding to
Thanks,
the
Mike.
conversation.
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board about the budget or the fee schedule? Seeing nobody, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Pomeroy to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the public hearing is closed. We will not adopt the budget until the last
End
meeting.
of the 27th, yeah.
Right.
27th, last-
And it's
Right.
9 o'clock in the morning.
9 o'clock meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so if there's any other, comments or anything, they can still be made to us as individuals. Sure. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. 7.2, receive a presentation on the Winona County Primary Prevention Project, Stop Sexual and Domestic Violence. Helen?
You got it all there, thank you. So, sorry, I hate having to look back to everybody, but hello everybody, my name is Helen Bagshaw, and I'm here to present what the Primary Prevention Project has been doing over the last year, and to also tell you about our action plan for 2019. Also, I want to thank you for your support. You provided the project with $3,000. Also, you provided us the space where we meet every month, so thank you for that. As I sort of reflect over 2018 and we prepare for 2019, the project is as relevant today as when we started in 2008, because we know the occurrence of sexual violence, harassment, assault is being reported constantly in our society. So briefly, because I know you've got so much on, but I just want to spend a few minutes just talking about our mission, why we exist. The mission of the project is primary prevention of sexual and domestic violence. We want to provide not only education, but change the cultural norms, influence practice, policy and legislation in the county. The actions forced on primary prevention, dealing with any sexual and domestic violence or abuse involved in human relationships. Our goal is to keep everybody safe in Winona. So as I said before, we've been around since 2008. We had 15 partners as of the start of 2018. Now we have 17. The City of Winona Police Department and Minnesota State College Southeast have joined. So we are growing. We are impacting lots of different people and groups in Winona. So what is our action plan? What do we hope to achieve? We base our action plan on 2 national prevention guides. As I say, we can educate, which is great. We can even strengthen our own individual knowledge, but we want to do more than that. So we base our action plan on the spectrum of prevention. So, we want to change policy. I always think of smoking, right? 20 years ago, we would have all been smoking in this meeting, right? Because it was cool and it was the norm and everybody did it. Now, if any of you were smoking, that would be headline news in the Winona Post. But that's how I feel about changing the norms of sexual and domestic violence. So we can do it, but we have to start. We have to think about that primary prevention. Again, for our action plan, we promote social norms that protect against violence, we teach skills, we provide opportunities, we're creating protective environments, and we want to support our victims. So that's our framework. And what did we do? What is the highlights? What does this project do? So I kind of gave you a sheet about what we spent the money on, because that's the most important. And that's what we value the county for. So January, we had a 10-year community celebration. That means we're in for the long term. We also celebrated our colleague, Joe, who really set up the primary prevention project. And we celebrated all the things that we're doing. Also, it was Super Bowl, so you know how fantastic it was. Minneapolis was, the center of the world, and we used the Super Bowl concept because there was 70,000 fans in that stadium. When it all flashed round, and in Minnesota, over 70,000 adults and children were sexually assaulted in 1 year. So when you think about what happens, and this is just it doesn't affect me, or I don't know people. When I think of the Super Bowl and all those people, that's how many people in Minnesota are affected and touched by what happens by sexually assaulted over a year. Also, the Super Bowl brought in chances to do some training with the newest hotel in Winona, which is the American Inn. In January, we did some sex trafficking prevention and information to the staff there, and we are going to do that again with the new Marriott that will be opening, sometime this year. So all those things. We also did the coaches training. Do you remember the Coaching for Change that I told you about last year, where in high school all the coaches get mandatory education about gender equity, but for for youth athletic groups that aren't to do with the high school. They don't get that. So we brought in and we trained 15 coaches for Winona Youth Soccer. You can go down the list. We have been at Know Your Neighbours. We partnered with Hands Off for the child abuse prevention. But our big thing that was the really highlight, and we used most of our money for, was the community conversation. 2017, we partnered with Winona State and did the Frozen Film Festival. This year, during Domestic Violence Month, we partnered with one of our new partners, and we had a community conversation where 52 people came from Winona, all different people came, and we had a speaker from the cities, talked about how communities can impact and how they can help change. And it was a great success. We were the top story on KTTC 10 o'clock news. We had the press there, and it might not seem a lot, but we're only a tiny little group, and it was great to have. Who would have thought 10 years ago, people would have come and, wanted to be, part of, what to do for primary prevention and all of those things. So we've done a lot with our money. We've got plans for 2019. So I'm just excited and thankful for your support and looking forward to 2019. And I've actually got a present for you, but it's just a bookmark, and it really just sums everything up. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So I'll pass on those.
Margaret Mead.
And if you have any questions or anything that you would like me to answer, otherwise I will let you get on with your business.
I just want to thank you for your leadership and for your attention to these issues for our community.
You do have to work on that Texas accent, though.
Got it.
Thank you. No, we need to clone her. We need to clone Helen and take that energy in a lot of different ways. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Helen.
Great. Item 7.3, it says discuss and or appoint citizen advisory committee volunteers. And last meeting we had a speaker who brought it to our attention, Doug Nopar, that this time, unlike past years where the board has not changed because of elections, we have had the discussion on our citizen committees at this in the December meeting realm. This year we will, with Commissioner Pomeroy's retiring and elect Chris Myers coming on, I personally think we should delay this discussion until Chris Myers is seated at the table and she is a full member of the discussion. Plus, there was a lot of applications, and I haven't really completed my homework as much as I would like to with all the applications that we got.
So a motion to table be in order?
A motion to table until our first meeting in, do we want to put a date, the first meeting in January? Because we need to get those advised. All right, so we have a motion to table until the first meeting in January 2019 to discuss and or appoint citizen advisory committee volunteers. Motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Pomeroy. The table doesn't allow for discussion, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. So Commissioner-elect Meyer, I'm sure you've got the whole packet. You can start doing your homework as the rest of us. Thank you. And I do a comment, though, that we did have a lot of people apply and applications, and so that is good. I think there may, though, be still, even after all of that, we may have one or two openings in a couple of the committees. So stay tuned once we figure it all out. I think a couple of committees may still have some openings in January. 7.4, review and adopt resolution of elected officials' salaries.
Each year, we bring a recommendation to the county board regarding the elected official salaries. Based on past discussions, last year, the year before, we kind of put together I put together, a recommendation based on moving the elected officials toward the average of our comparable communities. We did it last year. The county board approved that particular recommendation. This year, we updated the survey from the Association of Minnesota Counties and other information for the comparable communities, or comparable counties, and put that in the packet and made the recommendation on the same methodology as continuing to move those positions toward the average of other positions with the 7 county comparables by 2020. And that's what this represents. The county board did last year ask for some information from each of the elected officials on accomplishments during the year. Those have been provided.
I know in the packet online, there was more of it seems like I'm missing something in the copy thing.
It should be all there.
The percentage, no,
You keep going down to the very last page of the packet for that. There's a landscape document.
yeah, that's what I thought too, but I don't seem to. But anyway, so the total,
No, wait, that's a, yeah.
Oh, here it is.
Page 398.
Yeah,
okay,
page 398.
because I know I looked at it online, 398?
Yep.
Before the individual letters or
Right.
summaries from
Right.
the electeds.
Oh, there it is, I'm sorry, I just didn't turn the page over enough. So the total that we're looking at, which has not been calculated into the 2019 budget, is,
Are you looking for a total of the increases, or?
right, because we didn't budget for this.
Right,
So this
but-
has to be added on.
Well, no. What we've done in the past is, because the budget's usually formulated at this point, rather than making an adjustment for these salaries in the budget, we've just applied them to those salary accounts. What typically happens during the year is there's some float in those budgets based on vacant positions and so forth. And so in the end, rather than overstating the budget, in my opinion, we just use that small amount of float that happens that you get during the course of the year when people come on and off, and with 290 employees, there's a lot of movement, and so those salary accounts can't be exactly figured out. So there's some flexibility there. So my opinion is, rather than raising the budget by this, we seek to absorb them, and that's worked out in the past.
So I have to get out my phone to add up how much it is.
Well, if you look at the total, I can tell you it's 10, 20,
Well, the public should know what we're talking
25,
about. I mean,
27. We're looking at about $32,000, I believe. Just a quick back of the napkin kind of.
okay, all right. So we're raising the sheriff to $130,846, the county attorney to $135,515, the county recorder $84,722, and the auditor treasurer $99,360.
Yeah, and it's still well short of the averages, but it's moving more toward them. And remember that average moves every year too. So even though we use an assumption of 2.5% on the other communities, if they go up higher than that, then that affects it as well going down the road. So, and we're actually using 2018 numbers. So we're basing the averages on the previous year. So really, even though the elected officials will be paid in 2019 this salary, they're being compared to the 2018 salaries for other elected officials.
Okay, and I didn't agree with the system last year, and I don't agree with the system again this year, but
Yeah, and as you know,
the wishes of the board.
we talked about that, and the statutes will provide for provide limited movement in terms of how you determine these particular salaries.
the wishes of the board regarding this resolution. On page 394.
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pomeroy, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to adopt the resolution. Any further discussion?
I think it's just what we had discussed last year. I mean, that we could rehash it all in depth, but I think we planned on moving towards these averages.
That was the progression. I think
Yeah.
it's probably pretty much exactly what's specified for next year, last year.
Yes, and I don't
Right.
disagree with that. Commissioner Kavesi.
I just want to say I appreciated the updates from each of the departments, from the electeds. I saw in there a real variety of cost saving as well as, smart spending and those kinds of, I think they're being very cautious with the public's money, and I appreciate that.
I would agree. The reports were appreciative. I wish I could have taken each one of the other electeds with me campaigning this summer and this fall and visited some of my constituencies that, again, and it's not a new story, it's my same old song, is that most of my constituents were losing money. So it is very difficult to ask them for more money out of their pocket to give to other electeds who, again, if I was in private business and you were doing work like this, there would be no hesitation in handing out, bonuses each year. But when I'm spending other people's money, county property tax dollars, it is very difficult for those that are coming up on the short end to pay somebody else more. And it is, and I feel it's a public service job. So that's part of it. So we have a motion. Any other discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Pomeroy, second by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the resolution for the other electeds in Winona County. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, passes. Thank you. All right. 7.5, approve proclamation for county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workday. And there's no department head here or anything to? No, okay. Well, this is a request. Our state health and human service workers do an awesome job. I just attended at our AMC conference, I attended a workout session. A gentleman from Olmsted County did a presentation on the stresses of the human service, public health, workers, and how they work with some of the most difficult situations in our society, taking children and disrupting families and working with a lot of bad things, and how they can deal with the stress of that, and how we as elected should review some of the things that we do. Personally, I took away personally from this is that they said shut off the cell phone. You don't need your phone on 24/7. You should shut it off, shut it down. You shouldn't send emails after hours, and I'm guilty of this. I send Mr. Fritz emails, and he's bad back too. He answers them, oftentimes. So we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be adding to the stress of those jobs and everything. But there are things you can do, and I do want to share some of the things from that workshop. And so when this came through, it was very pointed. So to read this into the record, State of Minnesota proclamation. Whereas county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workers are dedicated to improving health, protecting the vulnerable, and providing outstanding public service to the people of Minnesota through their prevention efforts, administration of programs, and provisions of services. And county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workers are responsible for prudent expenditure of millions of dollars annually and must meet the highest standards of job performance in program and service delivery. And the duties performed by county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workers require that they demonstrate a variety of skills in order to provide services to clients, communities, and the general public. And the nature of federal and state legislation necessitates that county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workers continually expand their knowledge, skills, and expertise related to their professions and the need of the communities they serve. And the state of Minnesota recognizes the valuable public service that county, city, tribal, and state health and human service workers perform each and every day for the health, prevention, and protection of Minnesota. Now, therefore, Mark Dayton, Governor of Minnesota, did proclaim Wednesday, December 12th, as County, City, Tribal, and State Health and Human Service Worker Day. And we do here also in Winona County. And I don't know if you caught it, we did make our administrator, he wears multiple hats. We did have a personnel shift, and so now Mr. Fritz will be the head of this Health and Human Service organization until we find a replacement. So thank you for taking on that role again.
Did I have a choice?
No, there was no choice. It was a mandate.
I was wondering,
It
yeah.
was one of those mandates.
Those
that-
unfunded.
Unfunded, underfunded. All right, is there any other business? Oh, let's see, Marie, you had Commissioner Kavesi.
I didn't have anything, but I would like to say congratulations to Commissioner Ward. At the recent Association of Minnesota Counties meeting, Commissioner Ward received the President's Award, and that's quite an honor for recognizing her work and her long service to Winona County and to the state. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was very much a surprise, so thank you. Let's see, I did have something, speaking in terms of going back to the legislation and legislators, and I know we're trying to set up meetings with them, and we have a new governor and everything. Just by chance, I was going through a stack of things on my desk, and I think Ms. Holte had done this. This is an old document, but it was, we had gone through and done mandates. And it was outlined, and I'm sure Ms. Holte still has this. It was indicated the services that we provide and if it was mandated or if it wasn't, and how that all worked out and how it related to our budget and how we could possibly maybe do things different. There's two documents. But what I would like this group to think about doing with the legislative session starting up early, and we have an opportunity in January, is maybe to ask each department to come up with the number one mandate that they would like to see some change made. And I was talking to several other commissioners from around the state, and I'm trying to get some information from one of them, is where they actually costed out, what the mandate did. And I know our legislators always think that, we're just asking for more money, but I think we really need some good hard facts to prove, to present to them. I can see Representative Drazkowski, he's called us a special interest group at times, and he has control of the funding. But I think if we asked each department to pick out the top mandate that they feel that we should be asking for, a change in legislation, a change in funding, or somehow a change, that we need to narrow our list instead of just saying unfunded or underfunded mandates. I think if we had a very short list and say these are our top ones that are driving us to raise levies, that it might have more impact than just a very broad general statement that, we need mandate relief. And we could maybe use, and Ms. Holte probably could provide us this, and we could use this as a basis, but I know things have changed.
Yeah, some of that information is in the Minnesota First, which is a review and an analysis by the Department of Administration, which has nothing to do with programs, so there's no program bias or support there. And they take a look at the different program areas and literally the programs, and they give us cost-benefit analysis and cost-benefit information. So some of it may already be available.
But I think to put it in some kind of condensed one page, because I don't expect legislators to delve into the nitty-gritty of things, but
Yeah, I mean, we can do that, certainly, ask each department for some of that information, and I think, it's valuable, and it's the kind of stuff that we have sent to the legislators before. But if you really look at the impact between out-of-home placement and sexual offenders, if they would just fund either the sexual offenders as they used to do previously, because they've changed that reimbursement substantially over the years, and if they did a portion of the out-of-home placement, you're talking millions of dollars right there. So it's not a complicated, we could come up with 10 different small mandates that take a lot of effort to resolve, because you have to go through the whole process of educating everyone and then deciding how to get the legislation and so forth. But there's really 2 or 3, maybe 4 tops.
Do we still have Sentence to Serve funded, or is that funding?
Well,
It's shifted.
yeah, it's still the same. The funding is right. Yeah.
Right,
It used to be 100%,
Yeah,
or
and then it went,
75.
yeah.
So there's a few of those kind of things where over the years it's changed, and they're
Right.
really easy to point out. So we, like you said, 4 or 5 main ones, but you're going to get the main ones we've talked about a lot.
Right, right. But we need to narrow the focus to how it affects Winona County.
Yeah, and we can do that.
taxpayers. Okay, so I'd look forward to that in early January, to having a discussion and.
Well, one of the things that I think I sent a note to the board indicating that we'd like to put a packet together, which we do every year for the legislators, whether we have a meeting or not,
Right.
and provide that to them. And that's usually the top is, here's the main focus.
Okay, all right. Any other business to come before the Winona County Board?
So
Yes.
must have been when I said that I had one item that you wrote down Marie's name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
So
Commissioner
anyhow,
Jacob.
first of all, Marie said exactly what I put down, that congratulations on your presidential award. So that was my item. But also, we don't do any, I guess, reports on our AMC convention, but the time that I spent there on Monday and Tuesday representing really the constituency of Winona County, it was fruitful, and it's not just learning. There's our committee meetings where we have the opportunity to, in my case, actively try to stop the expansion of government, and you can take part in that and make a real difference. So I felt like I had an impact at the meeting, and it was worthwhile for the constituents to have our board, and I think 3 of us were there, right, and our administrator. Yes. So worthwhile.
And including our commissioner-to-be,
Yeah.
Yes.
commissioner-elect.
Yeah, a lot of learning goes on, a lot of information shared.
Yes.
All right, okay. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Jacob to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We adjourn. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.